we're missing about 10 people, but we're just going to get started because maybe something came up with them. And this is our first of our 3 discussion series on suicide attempt survivor. It became very prevalent to us that we needed to have a group that could talk about their life experience as a survivor without shame, without guilt. And we really wanted to provide a space for that because it's so important to know that if you survived cancer, what kind of reaction would you be getting from the community and from your friends and from your family? Probably one of hope, encouragement, and love. But what happens with a suicide attempt survivor? A suicide attempt survivor doesn't want to talk about it because they're worried. What are people going to think of me? What are people saying about me behind my back? Am I going to lose my job? Do they think I'm crazy? All of these things. Well, if you follow I Understand, if you believe in what we do, then you understand that suicide really isn't a choice. Suicide is an effect of a mental brain health illness or pain that each one of us lives with. And that is why we have a definition petition to change the definition of suicide from one who intentionally kills himself to an effect of a mental brain health illness or pain. Because pain is a common denominator of all suicides. Yet, we don't talk about the pain that causes suicidal thoughts and actions. What we talk about is the mental illness that somebody's living with. Well, depression is a mental illness. It's a disease. And depression is present in over 90% of all suicides, diagnosed or undiagnosed. But the most important thing here is to remember is that pain being the common denominator, pain comes from places that we all have experienced. Divorce, financial devastation, physical pain, grief, life situations, so bullying, so many things that we don't talk about. So what can we do? We can go online, IUnderstandLoveHeals.org, read our petition, sign it, and change your way of thinking and speaking about suicide. I do that by saying, I lost my husband to depression. I talk about the illness that he lived with rather than the act of how he died. Because often what people want to do is ask, how did he do it? And why? How is that important? But maybe we should be asking why. Why? Because he was in deep depression, and depression is an illness, and the illness actually won. So changing that definition from one who intentionally kills himself to an effect of a mental brain health illness or pain. Because what I'm sensing with those survivors that I have talked to is you probably really didn't want to die. You wanted your pain to end, right? And maybe you didn't know how. But that's why it's so important that we come together as a community, as a group, and talk about why do we have these? Why? Why do we have these feelings, and why is it so hard to talk about it with people? That's what I want to do here tonight, is talk about why we have these feelings, why a community of support is so important, and how we can come together as a community of acceptance and love and judgment-free. So I am very proud to introduce my panelists, who are also our facilitators of our suicide attempt survivor support group, which meets on the second Tuesday of every month at Forest View from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And for those that have been affected by this, I know that one of the hardest things that you have to do is walk through that door, because there's fear, right? There's fear of, what do I expect? How am I going to feel? what emotions am I going to evoke? Am I going to cry? Am I going to be judged? Well, with us, you may cry, but you will not be judged. You will have a supportive community that I promise you, when you leave the group, you'll be glad that you came. So Emily and Ryan are here with us today, and Emily is a therapist, and we have worked with Mosaic Counseling for over 8 years in providing a therapist with our support groups, because it's one of the very unique things about our groups is that we have someone with a lived experience and we have a trained therapist. And our lived experience is Ryan. And Ryan, he came to me wanting to talk about it, wanting to talk about his experience, wanting to help. And I'm like, Ryan, you're the perfect facilitator for our group. So here he is. So Emily, would you mind just talking a little bit about yourself?
Hello? Okay, there you go. Well, hello. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for Vani and her, huge team of support that she has for putting this together. I think this is a great event to come together and talk about a hard topic that's not always talked about in this sort of capacity. So I think that's great. Like Bonnie said, I am a therapist. I am a licensed professional counselor. Currently, I work at Tahoma Counseling, which is a private practice. I specialize in working with adults, so anywhere from 18 up typically. So I work with both individuals and couples. Specialize with a whole bunch of things. I work a lot with neurodivergency as well. But depression, anxiety, life transitions, things like that seem to come up pretty regularly in the clients that I see. So that's what I've been doing since I started working as a therapist almost 2 years ago to the day. So I love my job, and I feel very honored that Mosaic has kind of reached out to me and Vonnie reaching out to me to facilitate this group. It's been an honor to get to know everyone and get to be part of something like this in the community, for sure.
Thank you. Ryan?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan. I'll say the same as Emily. Want to thank you, Vonnie. I mean, you're why we're all here. You made all this happen, and Emily, you've been awesome too. Leading this. This is our newest support group, the Suicide Attempt Survivor. I think it just started in January of this year to join the 2 others that we have. But I'm a suicide attempt survivor. My attempt was when I was 18 years old, a month after I graduated high school, and I just turned 30 this January, and I'm married for 5 years, and I've got 2 beautiful daughters, 3 and 1 now. So that's my reason for everything these days. But I use them as my motivation to kind of becoming a dad really changed my perspective on a lot of things, and specific to this group and sharing my story, I kind of turned a corner and said, okay, it's time to stop burying this and not wanting to talk about it, and protect myself from the fear of that shame or guilt or things we've talked about in this group, but use it to try to help other people that are going through a similar situation to what I did, or have gone through, or have lost somebody, and hopefully offer my perspective as a survivor to try to help people. And I had somebody reach out on Facebook today. I posted on social media about this event, and they said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. I don't know how to tell somebody about this, but this is the perfect opportunity. I survived a suicide attempt, and I'd like to come to a support group." So that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Help one person change their perspective, change their mind, and if I can encourage people to share their own stories too, that's really what would be my goal of tonight and being a part of I Understand. So, and thank you all for being here.
It sounds like you've already helped one person today, and with that Facebook post, and you're probably going to help more people here tonight too. But Ryan, I want to ask you, you were 18 when you had your attempt. How long was it before you were actually able to talk about it?
Publicly, beyond the one therapist I saw immediately after being released from the hospital, it took me 11 years. Last year when I started talking to you.
Was I one of the first ones you shared that with?
Yeah, I mean, my mom's actually here tonight. So, Mom, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk. I'm not going to put you on the spot. So.
Yeah. Well, I feel honored that you felt safe and that you felt that I and my organization gave you a comfortable space to do that in. But what was it why did it take you 11 years? Was it the judgment and the stigma?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was, I had a group of friends and I didn't want to be the odd one out. I didn't want to paint a target on myself and have people ask, why'd you do it? What was going on? I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to seem different. And personally, I told my family. I might have told my best friend shortly after, but yeah, I didn't tell more than 6 people in my life until 11 years later. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, becoming a dad changed my perspective on a ton of this, and I just, by happenstance, right, I think I ran into Andy. Andy introduced me to you, Andy's another board member, and the way you communicate about it has helped me. I'm still figuring out how to tell my story and talk differently, and even some of the verbiage I use, right? Like, I talk about depression and loneliness instead of the act of suicide.
Right.
And I've only spoken publicly less than a dozen times, so this is still super fresh to me.
So when you started speaking openly, did you feel the guilt and the shame and the judgment that you thought you would feel?
No, complete opposite.
See?
Yeah.
When you open up, when you share, you will empower yourself, but you will find your own community of people. But the most beautiful thing I think that happens is the people that reach out and they say, thank you for sharing, I didn't know. And then you have almost like this instant connection because you found a safe place. And that's what we want to do, is provide that safe place. So Emily, with all of the judgment and the stigma and the misconceptions around that judgment, what would you as a therapist say to somebody that has attempted and that fear and the fear of judgment that they feel?
That's a loaded question. I mean, a lot of that fear, a lot of that guilt is valid, right? Because so much narrative, so much dialogue about suicide and depression and self-harm is guided that way, right? Is narrowed down into that direction, and is spoken about it in that way. And so one of the great things that I understand is trying to accomplish is trying to rewrite that narrative and to trying to make it not this negative stigma, to talk about it and to bring an empowerment to it. And I think there's a lot of, when I talk to my clients, when I see clients individually about suicidal ideation or self-harming behaviors, I think a lot of that fear that gets brought up is, like you were kind of touching on, I'm going to be crazy, or I'm going to go to like a psych ward or a mental institution or something crazy along those lines. And I think certain clients or the society has believed that clinicians, providers such as myself, almost have like a trigger finger for any mention of suicidality to automatically send you away, right? So when I meet with clients, my first thing when I discuss about consent and me disclosing any sort of information about suicidality or self-harming or things like that is to go over what that means, what that looks like, right? Like if they're telling me I'm going to go home and use this object and I'm going to do it at this time, obviously you're not leaving my office until I know you're not going to do that, right? But if you're like, I'm having just some intrusive thoughts and I need to work on letting those go, that's something that I don't need to like call your emergency contact or call 911 about. Those are things we can talk about, and we can work on a safety plan in office to make sure you go home and you stay safe, right? So there are different levels to that and what it looks like. And so I try to break that down with my clients too, so that it's not just a trigger that I pull.
So if you have a client that is a suicide attempt survivor, do you find that they have great concerns about the judgment and stigma within their own family?
I would say that it depends on whether or not they've opened up to their family about it. You know, if they've opened up to their family about it, I think you kind of get like one of two ways. You get the super, maybe more helicopter family, right, that are monitoring every move and that are over analyzing some things, right, and maybe are too, you know, on you about things, or you get the level of support that you need, right? Okay, what do you need from me? Do you need counseling? Do you need this? Do you need that? And things to that nature. But if you haven't told your parents, I think it creates this distance in your family. And I think that support system is so huge. And even with clients that are maybe having suicidal thoughts, I encourage my clients to not necessarily, I said, you don't have to tell them that you're having these thoughts, but even if you just tell them to know that like you're not doing okay and that you're not 100% right now, you need that support system, because that's what's going to help you get through it. So a support system is huge. And if that's not parents, if that's not siblings, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, friends, you know, whoever it is, right? Find your people. Mm-hmm. That's what I always tell my clients, because that's what's really going to help, is having those support people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Find your people. We're here for you. Emily, do you find that there's some generational differences, like the younger generation? Like I look at me as, you know, an older generation. You guys are the younger, but then there's younger. Do you find a difference in acceptance of mental illness and the way they talk about it? Are you noticing in your role that it's softening a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely noticed that, not just in my role as a therapist, but also in my role as a human being, right? In conversations that I have with different people, with my grandparents, with my older aunts and uncles, with people that maybe don't believe in mental health and things like that, right? I've noticed that myself, of just being a counselor and them looking at me like, how is that a career? What are you going to do? Like, how are you really changing someone's life just sitting in a room talking to them for an hour? And so I think there definitely is that difference for me within, you know, like older generation. You think of individuals in their 80s and 90s, you know, that, you know, you had insane asylums and all of those things back then where people didn't believe in mental health or therapy and things like that. Whereas nowadays, you have more of that trust and support, of like therapy is more of a valid thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's more of a spoken about thing, for sure.
Ryan, you kept your attempt very quiet for many years. How did that affect your recovery? You said you spoke with one counselor. Did you just really recover within yourself? Did you have, you know, a family dynamic that you shared with your family, or what kind of recovery did you have?
I avoided it on purpose.
Okay.
I didn't talk about it. I didn't, and I think, I can't speak for my family, but what I've come to kind of realize or or I don't know if assume is the right word, but that my family didn't want to bring it up because it was almost like, we don't want to trigger anything. We don't want to push you away. I've had that with friends or other people I've known with alcohol, right? It's like, don't even talk about alcohol because that could send them down a rabbit hole, right? So I've sensed some of that. But personally, yeah, I didn't want to talk about it. I said, nope, I'm fine. I'll suck it up, right? I grew up playing competitive sports. I'm one of 4 boys. It's like, nope, I'll be a man about it. So
That's what boys do.
Yeah.
That's why we have a men's group, men. So you can come and talk about it.
Yeah. Yep. And I've attended the men's group, and that's exactly what we talk about, right? It's like, we're people too. We have feelings. Yeah, I've got an awesome wife and 2 girls that really, poke and pry and help me convey my emotions, right? And I think that's healthy. And he's not here, but one of the other facilitators for the men's group, I like the way he put it, that people that are willing to talk about their own experience, that are willing to share, that are willing to ask questions, and even come to things like this, it shows a level of character, right? It's like you are a step above people like where I was, right? That want to dismiss it, pretend like it's not real, pretend like it's not affecting other people in your life, which it absolutely does. It's the most, in my experience, is the most unique thing to me, right? Only I went through the exact experience that I did. Nobody can share that with me. Nobody can take that from me. And one thing, Vonnie, I've told you several times now, is just within the last, I think it was in the last 6 months, I woke up one morning, I was getting ready to go to work. And it might have been the morning of a support group, but I had this feeling of pride, right? As weird as that sounds, I said, I'm proud that I survived a suicide attempt, and that I'm proud I can share this super unique experience. Because what I've come to find is that suicidal ideation attempts, or in somebody that knows somebody that's been affected by depression or suicide, it's super normal. It's a lot more prevalent than you might think. And I found that just talking about it openly, and people are willing to open up, because the ice has been broken. But yeah, to Emily's points, I think there's just a big stigma around it, right? People are afraid of losing their jobs, losing whatever, pushing somebody too far. So I think the more we can talk about it as just, hey, we're just normal people going through the hard stuff of life, and this isn't, don't be ashamed about it. Mm-hmm. So keep working, and I like to encourage people, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all sadness and getting down on yourself. There's a lot to look forward to and to continuously work on. Mm-hmm.
So at what point in the relationship with your wife did you share with her your attempt?
We were dating at the time, so she knew from day one.
From day one?
Yep.
So proud of him for that. And I think that's really important, because I think so many of us are afraid to share our stories, whether it's a suicide attempt, an addiction, or whatever it could be. But there's so many people that are willing to love you just as you are, whatever your life experiences are. And I'm really proud of you for that. And I'm proud of her for the love and acceptance that she gave you. And she's still supportive today of you speaking about it. And so Ryan, he gives us hope with that. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that you have that. So, Emily, what are some key steps that you can suggest to someone that may be experiencing suicidal ideation?
Good question. I think initially when a client comes to me, right, their suicidal ideation it can mean a lot of different things, right? So I think my first investigative approach as a therapist is to look at, okay, where are you at with that? What does that mean? Are these passive thoughts? Are these, hey, when I go to sleep tonight, it'd be like super cool to not wake up in the morning and just like have those errands go away, right? Or have the kids not scream in my face or come crawl on the bed in the morning, right? Or is it like, yeah, I have this plan, this is the date and the time, and this is what I'm going to do, right? So trying to evaluate where they're at in that, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're sitting in my office, I need to make sure that when they leave my office, they're going to be safe. So evaluating that, if they're at more of that extreme level, I'm sitting down with them and making a safety plan. So what that looks like, most therapists do this, have this. You might see different versions of it, but basically it goes over kind of what are maybe some of your warning trigger signs that you notice that you're heading down a dark avenue into a dark place. What are some coping skills or things that make you feel better, whether it's going and grabbing ice cream or calling a friend or a parent or a significant other, journaling, listening to music, watching a great TV show like Friends, that's one of my faves, things like that. And then it goes through and it has them list like 3 contacts. So that can be, again, friends, family. It can be me. It could be a doctor, a psychiatrist that they see. So it can really be anyone. And so they have that as a copy, as kind of a visual aid, right? For them to then, when they're having those intense thoughts, look at and be like, okay, Emily wants me to do this. Okay, I'm feeling this way. I need to maybe go lay down and listen to my music or maybe do a coloring page. And then I need to, contact my best friend and tell her I'm not doing so okay. And I need her to maybe check in with me every couple hours just to see where I'm at, right? And then as things escalate, there is also crisis hotline numbers on there as well. While I'm your therapist and I'm going to be your number one cheerleader, I am not a crisis therapist. So if that becomes a point to where you're at, I'm going to refer you to crisis therapy resources for you because they are going to do a much better job than I am because that is not what I'm trained in, right? So I'm going to refer you to your best bet and your best option. So there's that on there as well for if or when that gets to that point. So that is a lot of kind of go-to for any therapist with a client that is having any sort of suicidal ideation. But then, so once that's done, that's kind of like my big thing. Make sure that's done. Make sure they feel like they have a good connection to resources and things like that. But then for the rest of the session, right, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, we have a half hour left, and you're just like stuck in these thoughts, right? So what are we going to do? So I kind of leave that up to them. If that's something that they want to talk and process through, heck yeah, let's do it. If they want to ditch those thoughts and play Uno with me for 30 minutes, let's do that too. Or we can go take a walk outside around the building or color or just sit and gab about the newest Love is Blind episode that just got released. So
I watched that.
It's so good, right? So I am a tried and true therapist. I'm going to meet you where you're at. I'm going to be where you are, and I'm going to be what you need for that moment, especially when you're in maybe more of that crisis and you just need a safe space to feel unjudged.
What do you tell them when you're not with them and they're at home alone having those thoughts?
Well, they always have that crisis hotline number. So if they reach out to me, I haven't had that happen too much. But if they do reach out to me saying, hey, Emily, not doing super hot, I'm like, here's this number. If you don't want to call someone, you can text, you can message. There are so many options with the internet that we have now, which is super great. So you can kind of do whatever you're comfortable with. But if they reach out and let me know, that's kind of what they have, or what I'll send them or talk to them about. Or sometimes when maybe some more crisis-y things happen, like hey, maybe their grandma passed away over the weekend, or something just hit them kind of hard, or they didn't pass an exam or something like that. They just want someone to maybe send them a uplifting message and be like, hey, that really sucks. I'm really sorry. Like, what can I do to help you? Sometimes that's why my hours aren't set in stone, right? Sometimes I just have to be there for them.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to share is the three sides of us. I know those that are at my support group, they probably know this by memory now, as Lisa laughs, because she's like, I've heard this 1,000 times over the past 8 years. It's so important that we understand the three sides that each of us has. The first side is our public side, right? The side that you're seeing all of us today. You're seeing me and Ryan and Emily and who we are. Then we have the side, our second side, who we are at home with our families. We might not be as nice. We might be busier. We might be quieter. We might be louder, but we're just different with our families. But then there's a third side, and it's a side when I go in my bedroom, I shut the door, and all of my thoughts are to myself. And I'm having suicidal thoughts, and I may even be making a plan. But I go out to side 1 and 2, and it's still Vonnie. She's still smiling. She's still cooking dinner. But that third side, if I don't share that I am having suicidal thoughts and maybe making a plan, how can you help me? It's so important that we share whatever it is that we're going through with somebody. But we put so much guilt on ourselves when we don't know how we can help you, because if you don't tell us, how can we help? There has to be one person in your life that you would be able to share with. So just remember that, the three sides to us. Share that third side of you. Tell somebody how you're really feeling, because it could save your life or it could save somebody else's. So I like to use that because I think it's really important. I also like this question. This is for both of you. How do you encourage someone to reframe their experience of a suicide attempt as a survival story rather than a failure?
Start with that one. I think first it takes time, right? For me, it took 11 years. Some people have shown up to support group a week later, a day later. So first is time. It's different for everyone. And for me, one thing I can point to is becoming a dad, right? Like, I was young and dumb and didn't have kids. Now I'm just not as young, and well, that's it. But no, it's taking the time to reflect personally, to share with your people. Vonnie, you said, nobody knows if you don't tell them. There's a quote that I like. It's, dig your well before you need water, or fill your bucket before you need it, right? It's like, that's one. If you want to have a take-home message for tonight, if you don't have a, kind of your go-to person, your rock, think about who that could be. You might not need them right now, but when you do need them, know who that is. And I've got a couple people in my life, right? Like, I can go to them, no questions asked, no judgment. But in terms of sharing your story, yeah, it takes time, it takes effort, right? This doesn't come easily. It does take yourself taking a step forward, right? It took me being uncomfortable, reaching out to Vonnie and saying, hey, I really don't want to speak publicly about this, but I feel like I need to, or feel like I should, right? Even now, I'm like, what the heck am I doing, I don't hold a microphone often or sit in front of groups of people. But yeah, it's getting uncomfortable. It's pushing yourself, right? And if you were trying to give a family member or your best friend advice, give that same advice to yourself. Give yourself some grace, right? But get uncomfortable. So, and I wrote down a quote. I listen to a bunch of different podcasts and books and read a ton of books. And I have in my notes thing on my phone. I have it's like 200 quotes at this point, but one of them stuck out, and I'll read it word for word so I don't mess it up. It's from Alistair Urquhart. He's a World War II prisoner of war survivor. So he was captured, beaten, tortured, etc. And he got to the point where he's like, just end this, what's the point anymore? And he survived, and he returned home, and he said, remember it, while it always seems darkest before the dawn, perseverance pays off, and the good times will return. So I thought that was super relevant for myself, for tonight, for everything we talk about with mental health and depression and anxiety and a lot of things, right? You could be in a dark hole with the blinders on and think that nothing's ever going to change. But usually when you're in that spot, you look up, and that's your direction, right? There's nowhere to go but up. So I feel like I'm rambling at this point, so I'm going to pass the mic to Emily and let her go.
You are not. We could listen to you all night, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably piggyback probably a lot off of what Ryan just said, but I think speaking to him, like finding that person, right? Picking that person that's going to be your person, or finding your support system in this is hard, right? It's not as easy as it sounds to pick someone to reach out when things get really tough, or to say, hey, like, I'm having suicidal ideation, or hey, I'm in a really dark depression right now. And I think, as most of us, looks like adults, right? We got a lot going on in our life, maybe kids, grandkids, jobs, things like that, right? I was in a point myself where I was feeling a little dark, and I was like, well, so-and-so's got this going on, and my other best friend has this going on, and my parents have this going on, and there's always, it seems like, excuses to make, right, for things, to maybe not say something, or to not find your person, and to just buck up and try to handle it yourself. And so it's uncomfortable to finally be like, okay, you know what, I need to just reach out to someone and do it. And there is a lot of comfort that you get from that. It's crazy. It sounds like weird getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. But it does feel better. But sometimes, like Ryan said, it takes a while. It's not always something that happens the next day. It's something that maybe takes some thought, takes some process. But it's worth it in the end, for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely worth it. And I'm definitely glad everybody's here tonight, especially those that have had attempts. But I want to ask some questions, and I want to see if anybody knows the answers to any of these. First, why do we wear pink? I see lots of pink, and we have pink hearts, and we have pink everything, and we have pink fingernail polish. I'll tell you why we wear pink. Pink is the color of unconditional love, and it's loving ourselves enough to reach out for support when needed. It is that reminder. It's gender neutral. I mean, girls wear blue. Why can't guys wear pink? And it's also loving each other for who they are. Nobody's perfect. We all have our stuff. And again, it goes back to finding that tribe that Emily shared with us earlier. But the more serious questions I have is, why is the brain the only organ in our body that's judged and stigmatized when it fails? I've asked this question 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and nobody has ever given me an answer. Why do we talk more about the act of suicide than we do the illness that the person is living with or the pain? Why do we ask how Someone did it? When that brings me back to the moment that I found my husband, do you think that doesn't trigger me? That doesn't create some PTSD that I had to live with and still to this day have a hard time opening a closed white door? We don't have answers to these questions, but we need to have them. Because how many of you believe that depression is an illness? Yeah, everybody. So depression is an illness. Why is depression the only illness in our body that isn't offered compassion and understanding and hope? We judge it. We call people names. We joke about them. I don't get it, and it's not fair. So what do we do? How do we continue to support anyone that may be living with a mental brain health illness, because this is our brain, right? And again, why is the brain the only organ that's judged and stigmatized? So if we were to look at cancer, if you had cancer and you survived, you're a cancer survivor, and you would be praised and you'd wear a different color pink. But when you're a suicide attempt survivor, what happens? We want to sweep it under the rug. We don't want to tell people. Why? If we all start talking and sharing in this more accurate way and understand that maybe your attempt wasn't your choice. It was the effect of the illness or the pain that you were living with, and you didn't know where to go with it. And sometimes I think people that have suicidal ideation feel that they are a burden to their family, a burden to their loved ones. And out of an act of love, as crazy as that sounds, they relieve their family of the burden that they feel that they are. But we all know our loved ones could never be a burden. Can we get frustrated? Yeah. Can we get angry? Yeah. But love is still there whether you feel it or not. And if you don't have it, I guarantee you there's somebody that will love you for who you are. And that's why we say love heals. Because love comes from so many unexpected places. And I think even listening to Ryan with his story about today, posting it and somebody thanked him, that's healing when somebody acknowledges that you share. I've been doing this for 10 years, and every day something happens that I don't have gratitude for somebody that said thank you, or somebody that said, I read your book in a day, it helped me a lot. That's what keeps us going. So back to the questions. When you have the answers, can you please let me know? Because I would love to know. Because I feel like once those questions get answered, the shame, the guilt that you're feeling because you had a suicide attempt is going to go away. Because your illness, your depression, the pain that you were living with, suicide is an effect of that, not a choice. It's an effect that took over. Because your brain is just as important as every other organ in your body, and it is not perfect. So with that, we're going to take just a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom, get more popcorn, get water. All right. Are we ready to get started again? All right. So, back to Emily. Emily, how do you address the fear that many suicide attempt survivors have about relapsing or making another attempt? And I can talk about this from the perspective of having someone close to me have a suicide attempt, and then that feeling of I can't leave them alone. I have to stay with them 24/7. I have to, when is it safe for me not to be with them? What do I have to remove from the house? What do I do? But then how do we support? So it's two questions. Then how do we support the survivor?
Yeah, I mean, great question. And it kind of touches on a little bit of what I talked about earlier, right? Where you have those like two different types of support people that are kind of like helicoptery, right? Of like, when do I let go? When do I stop checking in? All those sorts of things. I mean, obviously my first like gut reaction, right? Make sure they're in therapy. Make sure you're seeing a therapist. Make sure that you tell them what's going on. If you're not comfortable telling anyone else yet, tell your therapist, right? That's a really great place to start. If you're scared or feeling kind of like it's going to be hard to tell maybe some support systems, family members, friends, things like that, tell your therapist. Or getting a therapist, I know can seem daunting too. Mosaic Counseling does a great job at matching you with a therapist. Might even be me. You're welcome.
And she is available.
Yes. But yeah, that would be like first and foremost types of things. But I think Vonnie, speaking to like, you know, from your perspective as like a friend looking at a person who's attempted and kind of looking at what to do, right? Ask your friend, how can I best support you without, you know, maybe being overbearing or overloading, right? What would you want from this, right? What can I check in? Do you want me to check in? You know, can we maybe schedule hangouts or things to do together, and things like that. If it's more serious, right? I've had clients that, all right, having some more reoccurrent and more intense suicidal ideations, they kind of have a friend that maybe will check in with me too. And kind of hold them accountable to things and stuff like that as well. So those are a couple little things that I may suggest or recommend to someone that's having a hard time or feeling like some of those scary thoughts are creeping up again, and maybe having the fear of like, I feel like I might attempt again.
Yeah, you know, it brings me back to like after my loss, and, you know, people coming and saying, what do you need? What can I do? I want to do something for you. That actually felt like a burden to me, because I was like, well, do you want to take all three of my kids for a week? Or do you just want to, you know, drop a pizza off? It created like conflict, because I didn't know if you wanted to do an inch or if you wanted to do a mile. I would take anything. But my answer would always be, I'm okay, I'm good, because I didn't want to burden somebody else. So my advice to you, if you have a friend going through whatever it is, a difficult time, lost job, a divorce, suicide attempt, anything, don't ask, just do. Bring over that meal, stop by and say hi, drop a card in the mail or a phone call is so rare these days. Really means a lot when people do that. Ryan, since you didn't talk about yours attempt, do you feel at that time there was anything somebody could have done for you that would help you maybe to have talked about it?
Prior to? Well, one thing I was thinking about, and maybe this answers your question, maybe it doesn't, but when both of you were talking is reach out to people. You know, this could be somebody reaching out to me at that time, or now me reaching out to other people. Reach out to people randomly when they don't need you, you know, not when it's, okay, something happened, it's time for me to reach out. Reach out randomly. I've got a buddy who, we're both dads, you know, we both deal with work stress, and we both had similar family stuff, divorces and whatever, hard stuff that we've both gone through. He's really good about reaching out and saying, hey, I'm having a hard time. What's up? Or we'll just catch up, just random stuff. It's like nothing prompted it. There was no, crisis situation that had to be solved. And he's made me a better person doing that for, back to him and for others. So I think that's one thing, is just practice awareness. Mm-hmm. And again, it's an extra effort, right? It's one more thing you have to try to do. But a random text just saying, hey, how's it going? Or hey, I want to hang out. That could be a big thing to somebody else that won't ask you to, some people won't say, yeah, just reach out to me, or can I reach out to you whenever? Some people do not want to be a burden. I didn't want to be a burden to my family, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I love that men of your generation, I think is a little bit less than my generation. I don't know. I haven't been around men a whole lot, but I think that's so wise of you to connect to someone. And I know it's important to some of the men here tonight, but that reminds me that next Monday is our men's group. And we're going to be having a discussion series on men and the importance of talking about what they're going through, whatever it is, life situations. It doesn't necessarily have to be a suicide loss, but that group too is open for anyone, male and females, because I think that we learn a lot from each other, whether we're a male or a female, and to be able to see men become transparent and vulnerable is something that I would love to see more from men in the future without having that fear of judgment or shame. I just want to ask, I know there's a couple survivors here. Is anyone want to share their story for a minute? I see head shaking no. No. Okay, I wanted to give that opportunity because
How long is it? Do you want the short version or the long version?
we have 2 minutes, Paul. No, I mean,
That's why
do you want to share a little bit? Okay, good. Come on up. Can you sit on here?
Well, I got a rod in my back,
Oh,
remember?
yeah. Okay, you know what? We're going to have you stand up and for just a minute. Okay, so this is Paul. He has been with, I understand, God, I think 8 years. 9. Almost the whole 10 years, and he's still here. And he attends a support group.
I still have the same hair color.
Yeah, and so in 2 minutes, let's share a little bit about you.
Okay. I'm 63. Youngest of 7 kids. Sexually abused. Started suicide attempts before 10. I've survived it all, back and forth, therapies, hospitals. But my one big question is, now having the survivor group, now I feel like I fit, finally. It's okay to talk about it, It's okay to say, hey, I made it. I'm still here. It's kind of like if you go up to somebody, women-wise, you go up to that old boyfriend and go like, damn, I'm still good. But it's like, having survived all the suicide attempts so many different times, and triggers by having somebody tell me I'm not good enough, that I will never account to anything, to having a manager at work saying, I should never have children. You shouldn't be doing that. Everything in between. And I can honestly say, for the past 4 years, it's easier to talk about that Yes, I have depression. Yes, I am a survivor. I've survived heart surgeries. I've survived heart attacks. But one thing that woke me up a little bit later in life is that my last attempt, I hurt somebody I loved. More so. Not my daughter, not my grandkids, not my ex-wife, none of my family, but this family. That woke me up. And ever since then, it's like, I'm a survivor now. I won't hurt that person.
Thank you, Paul, and I think that that's very important that you share because, if you don't mind me sharing, Paul, I mean, you were very reluctant to come to the support group, and you were reluctant to come because of fear and judgment that you might have. And we have a nice little group, don't we, Kit? We have an awesome group. Yeah, we really do. So I want to have, we're going to have questions and answers, but before that, Emily and Ryan, if each of you could just sum up, what are your feelings on the importance of sharing your story and why support groups are important?
I'll follow up Paul and just say, for me as a survivor, Paul said it, right? Like that's his group. Those are his people. Kit. There is a certain bond that we have, right? That it's a small group of us, right? But we are the people that have gone through it ourselves that, we get it. You get it. And I think that's super special to have people that don't act nice and say they want to support. Having people that have gone through exactly what you've gone through, even though it's unique, it's unique to you. That's a big thing. That's safe. It's your walls come down, and any people that are, my biggest fear was, no offense to Emily or therapy in general, but I thought it was gonna be like the movies. I thought I was gonna be sitting in a leather chair. Somebody's gonna have a clipboard with a little lamp, and I was like, man, this is gonna be terrible, right? So that's not what it's like at all. So I would encourage people who are reluctant. You don't have to talk. Come to support group and just listen to other people. I pick up, little nuggets from every group I go to that are helpful for me, so I can reflect and they make me feel better, but also ways I can help other people, or tweak the way I talk about my own story, right? And maybe it's just changing a word or two. But I think just go to support group, talk to Emily, find your person in your life. For me, it was talking to a stranger, right? I didn't want to talk to my family. It was too close. I had too much pride, to admit that I was at a weak point in my life or a dark place, right? So I wanted to talk to a stranger, and my first therapist, right? I was required to go to therapy to be released from the hospital, and I was like, that is the last thing I want to do. But they said, you have to go. So I said, okay, whatever. I went for, I think, 6 or 8 weeks. His name was George. He's long retired now, but he was in his 60s, and he was just like, okay, you went through that, so what's up? What else is going on in life? I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, you play sports? You dating anyone? I was like, what? And he was just a regular guy, and I was just a regular kid, and it was just a regular conversation. So I think all of I always compare it to like putting Mentos in a Coke bottle, right, and then squeezing the cap on. That's what it's like if you don't talk about it. So it's at some point. Yeah. So it's all I can speak about is what worked for me, and I would encourage people to. You don't have to show up. You don't have to be super vulnerable. take the time you need, but I would encourage you to seek help in a way that it makes sense for you.
Yeah, so coming into working as a therapist, I did some group work when I was in internship when I was in grad school, and I really loved it, and I really wanted to get back into it when I was licensed, but wasn't sure what capacity it was going to look like. Was like gonna wait until after I got married to maybe like venture out into that. And then director from Mosaic had reached out and been like, hey, we partner with I Understand, and they're starting this new group, and we'd love for you to be the co-facilitator for it. And I was like, oh my God, this just fell in my lap, and this sounds great, and I would love to be the co-facilitator for this group. And it's been amazing. I've really loved it, and even though our group is small, we are mighty. And yeah, I've really loved it. And I think one of the biggest benefits of group is just knowing that you're not alone, that it's not something that you're doing by yourself or going through by yourself. Is knowing that while it may be different, like I think if anyone has talked, I mean, now that you've heard Ryan's story, you've heard a little bit of Paul's story. If you come to group, you can maybe hear a little bit of Kit's story, like all of like the same kind of experience, but it's also different, right? But in the same thing, they feel like they're not alone. And that's like the biggest part of all of it. And also, as the therapist of the group, right, I'm there to also help break down some of those stigmas about therapy, of coming into a room and sitting in a leather chair and, telling me all your deepest, darkest secrets upon the first meeting. That's not me. I'm very laid back. This is as fancy as I get. Most of the time I'm in leggings and a sweatshirt, curled up on my chair with a blanket. You can lay down on my couch, play with some fidgets and a blanket too. So that's what therapy should be like. I'm human too, just like Ryan was discussing his therapist, of like, yeah, I want to know about your life, the things you do, what your day looks like. Talk about Love is Blind, right? Like I want to talk about those things too. So I'm there to also help kind of maybe bridge that gap of therapy seems scary to talk to a person, a stranger I don't know. So hopefully I help with that. If it's not me, totally get it. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but maybe I can help you, lead you to someone that may be just the right person. So that's kind of my feel on group.
Well, she may be laid back, but she usually goes out with a bang. There's always like a powerful statement at the end. So, and I just want to say, support groups for me, now that I've been doing them for 9 years, I always look at Lisa when I have a question, because she's usually at everyone with me, is that sometimes I don't want to go. And I don't want to go because I'm tired. I've been talking all day. Sometimes it can be triggering and sad, but you know what? Every time I leave, I am so glad I went. And I usually leave energized. I usually leave knowing that we made a difference in somebody else's lives. And that's what we want to do at I Understand. And we want you to be safe, feel loved, and have a community of acceptance. And I think that you will always hear at every support group from me our definition petition and start changing the way we talk and view suicides. And please, please understand that your suicide attempt had to do with an illness or pain that you were living with. This was not something that sometimes we can control, but I want you to know how proud I am that you're here, and that I hope that you will keep in touch, and so we know where you guys are at, and maybe you did take away something from today. That's really important to me. And I always end whatever we're saying, and I'm not really ending yet because Maddie's going to do questions, but I am going to leave you with this, because I promise you this, that the world is a much better place with you in it. And I know it. And please believe that and let that ring through your head. So Maddie, does anybody have questions written down on a paper? We're going to write them on paper and give them to Maddie. It just works out better that way, so we can keep them moving along. Maddie, why don't you, I'll get them. Maddie, why don't you come up? And why don't you take 2 minutes and just explain, of course it's Paul interrupting. Of course. And you know what? And I look at Aaron when I say that. Okay. Maddie, we're going to have you come up. Okay. Did you get it? And then just talk 2 minutes about where you've been and what you're doing and why you're here.
What?
2 minutes of what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Whoa. 2 minutes. That's a long time to talk. My name is Maddie, as my mom so kindly introduced myself earlier. I am currently working at I Understand as the Director of Operations. I've stepped into that role about 2 months ago. Prior to that, I've worked at different residential treatment centers in direct care and admissions and operations. 3 areas of work that I'm very passionate about. I'm very proud of the work that I've done because it's definitely put me in a unique position that I feel like has, a unique position that is giving me the experience and knowledge to work at I Understand and to eventually become a therapist. So I'm excited for both paths, and yeah, that's me. We got questions? So I know you guys kind of already touched on ways that people who are experiencing suicide ideation and who have experienced suicide attempts, what they can do for support, but what, I guess this question's for you, Emily. What is some specific advice that you would give to friends or family members who you know are going through a hard time?
How long do you guys got? No, I'm just kidding.
2 minutes.
I mean, reiterating a lot of what I said tonight, advice like reach out to your support system, reach out to a therapist, find coping skills that help you, reach out to organizations like I Understand. There's more of them that exist, right? Find your niche, find your group. They're out there, and there are organizations like I Understand, like Mosaic, like Facebook groups that exist that are there to help you find the support, that specific kind of niche that you need.
Ryan, do you have any input on what friends or family members who know how to support friends or family members who are going through a hard time?
Yeah, I guess I'll echo some of what I said earlier, is just try to make an effort to support people and be there for people when they don't need it. And what you don't want to do is, what I wouldn't want is if somebody were to come to, I've had specific people, I know when they're reaching out, it's because they want to reach out specifically about suicide or depression, right? It's like you don't want to expect it. Like, oh, I know why they're reaching out. It's like, so, yeah, I'd echo that. Just make an extra effort to be there for people at random times. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you shouldn't know exactly what this person may want for you. It should be something that is normalized. You talking about that earlier definitely gave me a reminder. I have some close friends I'm going to be texting after this. This question says, what is the cost associated to be part of this group? I can answer that. It's free. It's sponsored by I Understand and Mosaic Counseling. Anyone's welcome. As I said, it's free. And the other question is, do you have to share your story or experience to participate? And I will let you, Emily, respond, even though we touched on this a little bit, but.
Yeah, so we touched on this a little bit. No, you do not have to share your story. It is not your, entry fee in order to come and participate in group. If you just want to come and sit and observe, learn, like Ryan and I have said, just sitting in a room of like-minded people or people that have gone through the same things that you have, just to get different nuggets of information, that's cool. If you want to come and chat and talk to us for an hour, that's fine too. Whatever level of talking you're comfortable with is what we're comfortable with.
And I tell this to people in support group. It's like, if you want to swap numbers, grab my number here and we can text or whatever. If you want to talk about something, I'll personally do that, because that's the reason I'm here, right? Is I want to try to help people. I've swapped numbers with suicide attempt survivors, kids who have lost parents, parents who have lost kids. So I'm here personally if anybody wants or needs that. But yeah, show up. There's zero pressure, and we have some fun too. It's we swap some fun stories and get to hear about Kit's latest crush. So we keep it lighthearted.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Emily. And as much as we love therapy, I think what Ryan brought out is a really important point to remember, that it seems like the phrase of the hour is to find your people. And even if you may not know someone personally, or you feel like you may be connected with someone like Ryan or someone else who's been up here in this room, it never hurts to approach and introduce yourself, and you never know what that connection could lead to. So thank you again. We have a question for Emily. What is some advice you have for the people in this room who may have family members who think that they're crazy or have that connotation of craziness around their mental health and potential suicide attempt?
That's incredibly difficult as someone who's had to thoroughly explain mental health to their own family members going into this field. I understand and also can't imagine when you're at this level of high depression or thinking about suicide, how turning to parents or family members and having them, you're just crazy, you just need to get over it, like just stop being sad, how those words are so diminishing and unvalidating. It's incredibly difficult to feel loved in the times when you need it the most. So again, reiterating, finding your people, whether that's friends, whether that's maybe giving your parents or family members resources to psychoeducation about depression, and them realizing that it is a disease, it is a disorder, it's not just something you're making up. Sometimes people aren't ready for that, but it's an option. But yeah, finding someone that's gonna help you and support you is the most important, and blood doesn't always make family.
I love that. I completely agree with that. Invite them to an I Understand event, let them introduce them to Vani, myself, or Ryan, anyone up here. And, sometimes it takes, that unfortunately like a new perspective for them, like a different voice in a way. And then our last question is for Ryan. And you have shared so vulnerably tonight about your story, and a lot of what prompted you to share, and a lot of that was around becoming a father. Maybe aside that, what motivated you to emphasis on finally share your story?
It's some of it's comes with maturity, reflection. I wasn't ready at 18 or 19. I didn't know anything about the world, right? Like I was young and dumb. So it was just a change in mindset, priorities. I had this feeling, I don't know if it was shortly after, but within a couple of years, in my early 20s, it's like, man, I really want to be able to help kids that are going through what I went through, right? Not just kids, anyone, but I could relate to 18-year-old me, right? It's like, I want to be able to help 18-year-old me. How can I talk to that person and say, hey, this is totally normal. You're totally normal. And, I think of what I have now. It's like, I've got a beautiful wife, 2 awesome kids, and they're my world, right? It's like, I can't imagine not being here for that, right? And I'm 30. I've got so much life ahead of me. And it's not that you have to have, a lot of exciting things in your life. It can be just like, you don't realize how much people love you, how many people love you, and, how much you'd be missed if you weren't here. And I thought, something that went through my mind at the time was, man, I'm going to take a lot of weight, a lot of weight off my family, right? It's like I'm a burden to everyone. It's like, no, I would cause everyone a lot more pain if I wasn't here. But yeah, it's maturity, life priorities. My mom likes to remind me that my brain wasn't fully developed until I was 25. There's some science behind that, but I don't believe it. But yeah, it was just, I always point to being a dad because it's just like, well, I don't have time to do anything except for love my family and make sure I'm the best version of myself that I can be for them. And now that is extending to, people beyond my family. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Gosh, talk about the world being a better place with these 3 in it, right? I mean, they're going to change and rule the world when it comes to mental health, and the way that they're able to talk about it is so inspiring, and I hope that all of you felt that tonight. But we have one more question that we didn't get to because I wanted to answer it. I feel like I failed my loved one because I didn't see the depth of his pain. What should I have done differently? I feel like I'm speaking mom to mom here, because when your child has a suicide attempt, it's the worst thing. And I get teary-eyed thinking about it because 2 of my 3 have. And Maddie speaks openly about her suicidal ideation. I go back and I'm like, what did I do wrong? What didn't I see? I go back to the question of, do I have to be with them 24/7? What do I do? But we only know what we know, right? If we don't know, how can we help? And how do we know to look for a suicide attempt? Because that's not going to affect our life, because that doesn't happen. Crazy people do that. No. Human beings that are in pain struggle. They want their pain to end, most often not their life. And I'm going to go back to the 3 sides of us. it is up to our loved ones to share with us what they're going through. And I thank God I have children that do that now. But yet, when we look at suicide, in my family at least, Maddie's family, there's 4 generations. There's so many other things that affect it. Is there generational suicides? I'm doing everything I can to avoid a 5th and 6th and 7th generation. We don't have a choice when our illness takes us to certain places. If our loved one died of another illness, heart disease, cancer, blood disease, diabetes, it would all be accepted, and parents wouldn't be feeling guilty or wondering what they did wrong. As long as you loved your child, that's what will get them through. And understanding that if you don't share, I can't help. So there is absolutely nothing more that we could do if we are loving our child every day like we are supposed to. And I am sure moms do that every single day. But let's place it on our loved ones to share and to tell us. So how do we be the one for someone? One more point. 1, use the acronym, offer support. You see somebody struggling, living in pain, offer. Ask them, are you okay? Do you need help? Narrate. What words are we using? Are we using judgment-free and stigma-free words? E, encourage. We're not therapists, but we know some who are. Let's get them the help and support that they need. Be the one for someone, but sometimes that someone has to be for you, so don't be afraid to reach out, tell someone, because as Maddie said, the theme tonight is finding your tribe. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it.